Welcome to all my friends and colleagues also. Um, I, Vaibhav Srivastav with Walter and Kritika would be presenting a small presentation that will try to set up the stage for the panel discussion. Uh, the session's name is itself introduction and understanding of this that will be trying to talk more about how we can make data as an enabler of flood management and planning. We have been seeing that data next we have been seeing that floods have been one of the most devastating natural disasters that we have been facing in India. It's not just the water that overwhelms our cities, but also how it transforms and exposes the lives, livelihood, and infrastructure in our region. We have been experiencing multiple kind of hazards and extremes. There have been like 88% of the days of the year which we have been experiencing some kind of hazard, whether it is an extreme flood event or a drought event. 71% of the year we have some kind of flood in some of the region in India, and we have been seeing that 60% of the people in the monsoon season, these fatalities have been happening due to some direct or indirect cause of floods. Today, we will be more taking the stage to use and understand what is the urban flooding and how we can understand these crucial aspects of the urban flooding. We can see that there are meteorological extremes, there are unbridled urbanization, the outdated infrastructure, and loss of natural buffers, which are the major cause and behind urban floodings. The map that you see is of Mangalore, where you can see all those river drainages lines already present and how the urbanization has happened on exact paths of the drainage paths. And now we are actually experiencing these kind of floods because of these unbridled urbanization that we did. Uh, how to choose how we choose is what is our that shapes our risk understanding and our future. What we have built, where we have built, and how we have built are the questions that we always try to answer, but post we have already done those mistakes. This is an example from Kerala, where we have been building a lot more infrastructure in the valley areas without understanding that the natural drainage path is getting blocked, and then we are facing and complaining about floods. When we try to see the causes of these urban floods, we can see them into three verticals, that is technical, planning, and governance and finance. In technical, as we know that there have been many low-lying areas, irregular, insufficient data sets, or climatic extremes that cause many kind of technical issues that we find us into these urban floods. There are planning issues where we have no data or unplanned master plans without considering the hydrological aspect, the topographical aspects of the city. We find one of the major that connects this planning and technical to the people, which is governance and finance. We find like in the coordination between various governments, there are the floods are not just jurisdiction based, they are cross jurisdiction. There are some problems like who will take the action, who will take the decisions, who will finance those things. There are many things these which are actually caused by these uh, decisions that we take. And now we'll try to understand how the data journey becomes into decisions. We can see data can be made into informations. Data can give you insights that can inspire you to take decisions. And all these verticals are actually based on how you interact these things with people, science, and tech. Who we do this data modeling or some kind of flood exercises, how we collect the data, who we do it for, what is the science behind it, what is the kind of model or hydrological systems that we are trying to analyze, are that the correct things to be done in that particular topography, are there particular kind of techs available to fulfill our analysis that comes from it, to take decisions like to make our cities flood free. Now we try to make data as an enabler of of urban flood mitigation. Um, what is hazard? Hazard is basically where the flood happens. Vulnerability is how much are you getting into the who is more problematic, who the flood will be more problematic to, whether it is the socio-economic conditions or some kind of the nearby to those areas where the flood happens frequently. Who is exposed, basically whether those people who are at these vulnerable areas, are they exposed to these kind of hazards, and these combinedly make the final aspect of the risk of flood. All these points actually have multiple theories behind how the data can be used into monitoring, preparedness, planning, and management.
So this was a small introduction given by my colleague Vaibhav. I will be talking more about how our team has applied data, how we've done analytics and modeling. So the impetus to any flood is the rainfall, and this is for the city of Mumbai, where we had looked at different automatic rain gauges and look at how these extreme rainfall events vary across the city. As you can see, the extreme events which fall into the category of heavy, very heavy, and extremely heavy rainfall does not uh, come in as a uniform forcing into our system. So this is one of the major issues when we look at different cities, is that the extreme rainfall is not uniform across, it is not localized. And even within these cities, the widespread differences in the quantum of rainfall and intensity is going to make things challenging when such kind of data is not available to force the models. We have different coastal cities. Again, this is regarding Mumbai, but at the same time, we've explored things in Chennai and Kochi as well, wherein storm surges kind of amplify the back the surge in in these stormwater drains, and thereby their capacity and their ability to move the water into the sea. There were instances where there were cyclones that have been that have affected the area to such an extent that the cities experienced nearly 1 meter of surge above the normal tide. And this is even when the cyclone did not experience a landfall, it had actually passed by the city. There are certain tier 2 cities such as Nashik over here, where we've been able to coordinate with the state agencies, so with the urban local bodies here, to identify different hotspots. And here we were able to identify that nearly 23% of the city population in Nashik is affected by waterlogging within a 100-meter radius of the waterlogging hotspots. In the case of Surat, which is a very nice case to understand the effect of reservoir flows from a dam upstream, riverine flooding, as well as coastal surging. And this study was mainly where we wanted to understand what was the exposure to the industries that were coming up within and around the periphery of the city. So the sensitization of these MSME associations was what was achieved through the process. And at the same time, we have something over here for Mumbai, where we were looking at the exposure for vulnerable population. In case of Mumbai, nearly 35% of the population lives within 250 meters of these flood hotspots. And the variable kind of settlements that we have over here, most of them are inhabited by informal settlements, which where they're located mainly along these low-lying areas such as the canals, water channels, and river banks. Warib's P, N, and S had the highest percentage of these informal settlements of this population. which experience not only flooding but also the aftermath of the floods, wherein the water quality deteriorates and complicates things in terms of other health related issues. It's not only about people, but also how we move people during these floods. Nearly 1/3 of the Mumbai's mass transit network gets affected, and this is actually used by the locals within the city to understand the extent of the extremity of these floods. If their local transport is going to shut down, they know that it is something very severe. So, based on certain statistical calculations, we were able to see that on an average, when such extreme rainfall events occur, the average travel time increases by nearly 90 to 140%, while nearly 65% of the population is left without any access to these transit networks. We also explored some kind of utilization in terms of the stormwater network in cases such as the PD Mellow catchment or the Ghatkopar Hills catchment, where we were not only able to model it for them, but also do a bit of capacity building for the staff on ground to teach them how they can understand their system, and also explore scenarios where if they would need to build new stormwater drains, how the scenario how that would affect their current systems. This moving from cities in central India, we now go to the northeast of India, in the region of Borderland, where the Brahmaputra, tributaries of the Brahmaputra originating in the hilly regions north of, in the northern tributaries, flow first in a meandering way where they have very high velocity, and thereby once they come into the plains, they start shedding those excess sediments and become braided channels. Now, this kind of study was done for the Borderland territorial region to demarcate these flood risk zones, and was further utilized for land suitability analysis. This has been fed into the regional spatial strategy for this region and is a part of a larger project. Finally, with respect to Mumbai, we were able to understand how detention storage tanks could be used along with nature-based solutions to act as flood cushions during extreme events, thereby reducing the effect of these extreme events on the system. It's not only about flooding, but also about how we could look at energy for certain areas. This is again in the northeast, in the state of Assam, where flood vulnerability index was used and overlaid with flood relief camps. And this was used as a prioritization for solarization of these flood relief camps. This is part of a larger study which was with the energy program here at WRI. And this was done with the Assam Disaster Management Authority along with WRI India.
So my colleague Walter clearly explained like how data is used for monitoring, planning, and management. Yeah, but why do we still have the issue? It is not fully sorted, right? So yeah, obviously the data that we are talking about has lot of dimensions. It's not a single dimensional problem. It has lot of layers. And we are trying to understand the physical world with all its topography, with all like how a water will flow through, where it will flood, when it will flood. So all of these from a physical world, on top of it, that talks about the models, that talks about the data that goes to the models. But in addition to that, like what Vaibhav was already telling, there is another layer of exposure. Like what was exposed to, the resources that is exposed to, the assets, the infrastructure that is exposed to. And on the top of it, we have the vulnerability layer where we have people who are getting affected, who are the most vulnerable population. So this is what is happening. But what we are trying to capture is all abstract representations, right? Because of our understanding. So one thing is about the process understanding, which is still improving. Like what levels of data we are understanding. Like what Walter was telling, then we saw the whole of Surat getting simulated. Then we saw neighborhoods of Mumbai getting simulated. So that is the dimension that we are looking at. And it's not just the seasonality. Like if a model is set up for a particular season, it may not work for another season which is cyclone affected. So there are a lot of spatio-temporal variability is there, which we are trying to capture, but our understanding is still improving. And when we go to the exposure layer, we can obviously see So we can obviously see some data is missing, some data is duplicated, some data is available, but in a very different format. And when we go to the vulnerability layer, we can see a lot of misrepresentation. Like we can see the gender data is completely misrepresented. We can see the connections missing, where people are placed, the connections between them, whether they talk to each other, many of these gaps. So moving towards the challenges that we have, it's the data prosody. Data is either not available, it might be inaccurate, it might be misrepresented, it could be redundant data, and sometimes data is not even available in an open forum. And that is a concern. And most of the time, data is costly to generate. Whoever is having that cost of setting up sensors are having more access to data. Then comes the model itself. So when we talk about data, then the model, how we represent the world also comes into play. How simple is that model? And scientists are spending most time and research to it, building huge models that are very good representative of a place. But when we want to shift that to another place and we want to replicate that, whether that scalability is happening and how we say it is to do that kind of scalable approach. And then comes the guidelines and bookmarks. Who is going to assess? There are hundreds of models, hundreds of data. Who is going to assess the quality of data that is getting collected? What is the accuracy of the model that is predicting? And how the accuracy varies from neighborhoods to neighborhoods. All these are very critical. And who is going to set the guidelines? Transferring that. So all this is set and done. Like data is there, model is there. Who is going to maintain it? There is the software, hardware going to sit. Who is going to invest on it? What are the silos that is existing in the institutions? Are they mapped of their responsibilities? How they're going to act? And in fact, whether they have the capacity to go through it. So all of these are a concern from data perspective. Then other dimension comes like the governance. How we are going to make a stable system out of it. Whether there are mechanisms that are operating, whether there are jurisdictional challenges that are there, and there are laws around data. Whether there are sufficient laws around data, then the finance comes, like whether we are sufficiently funded for maintaining these kind of assessment. Once the system is there, even then it should reach people. So how well we are engaging with the communities? Who is reaching the grassroots people? How we are transferring that complex data into simple decisions for daily activities of people. So all these poses challenges. From here, we could get very clear guiding what to say. We could get clear questions that we need more clarity on to get a better data as enabler for flood management. So here we talk about how to operationalize, how to collate, validate and maintain data, how to bring transparency and open access to the data, how to strengthen our institutions for maintaining this kind of data, the hardware, software, and how to build capacity and finance around it, how to engage the community. And in all the term, we are not just prepared for a short-term engagement. Like if there is a rain, there was a flood in Gorakhpur, in outskirts of Delhi. So how we respond once the event happens. But if we want in a long-term preparedness perspective, how we are going to enable that to systematic change. So that is where we are interested in, and we hereby welcome our distinguished panel of experts who are from a range of expertise, ranging from technical aspect to the community engagement aspect. So we have Shri Avinash Pratap Singh, Assistant Commissioner at Gorakhpur Municipal Corporation and Nodal Officer of Urban Flood Management Center, leading on-ground implementation of flood preparedness, drainage operations and emergency responses in Gorakhpur. Then we have our esteemed guest, Raghavendra Kumar, General Manager of Jalkal Department at Gorakhpur Municipal Corporation, with over 25 years of experience in maintaining water utilities, providing technical expertise for flood management, setting up of PAM, and riverine protection strategies. We welcome, sir. We have, let's welcome Professor Somendranath Curie. He's associate professor who's leading works related to computational and experimental hydraulics at IIT Madras. He is developing in-house hydrological models through lab setups and close investigation, leading to comprehensive tools like integrated river and ocean modeling system for urban and coastal flood management. We welcome you, sir. We introduce Satarupa Bhattacharya, program director at Urvani Foundation, with over 20 years experience in editorial leadership, driving civic engagement through platforms like Citizen Matters and Open City data for better urban community engagements. We also introduced Manabendra Saharia. Welcome, sir. He is associate professor at IIT Delhi. He's leading the HydroSense lab, specializing in data integrated flood and drought forecasting with innovative tools including AI for water management. And he has maintained the centralized data portals like India Water Model and National Flood Databases. We welcome Nidhi Madan ma'am, director at Rahiri Foundation, with over 2 decades in urban and landscape design, focusing on sustainable, accessible public spaces through nature-based solutions and community-driven projects. We welcome you, ma'am. And we have our own Mr. Raj Bhatt, a geospatial and data visualization expert with an over of a decade experience in urban sustainability, heat and flood resilience. We also have our speaker, Sahana Goswami, who is doing water resilience practice in WRI India. She has a wide experience of applying heat and water resilience projects. A warm round of applause to our speakers, and over to you, Raj, for the following discussion.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming, and particularly the panelists. Actually, we tried our best to assemble the best kind of a panel, which is, kind of diverse, right? Like, so you have people who are practicing from the government side, we are having academics, we are having people who are working on open platforms and everything. So it's a very diverse and a very distinguished panel. So I'm honored to be here. And I think flood as an issue, I don't think we have to preach to the choir. Everyone knows that we have to solve it. But the question is, what is the role of data and how do we use data in the entire process, right? Like, so the presentation by our team from WRI, they talked about 3 things, right? Like, so the problems that are existing, I mean, there is a process related issue when we are talking about governance and finance and everything around it. There's a process related issue on who, where, when, etc., etc. But then there are possibilities of utilizing data for solving these issues. And that is something that Water was showing us. I mean, whether it is monitoring the flood or whether it is, planning for it or understanding who are the most vulnerable ones so that you can prioritize action. But the reality is that, like what Kritika was talking about is, data has lots of issues. Data has lots of bias and lots of, whether it is available or not is a big question. I think there was a discussion earlier today and they were talking about, what kind of data sets are actually available. And everyone says that data is something that is required, but what kind of data is actually available? And what kind of decisions that can be made? And in case of absence of data, what do we do, right? Like, should we wait for the data to come? And is that something that is possible for us? So from that perspective, I mean, I think we'll start the discussions around it. So unfortunately, I mean, I have to be the person who is minding the time as well. This is, we have only, some 1 hour, I think. And which means the dirty job of telling you that the time is over, etc., is actually falling on me. But which I hate, but I have to do it. So I'll just set the ground rules. So basically, we'll do a 5-minute introduction for. You can talk about your work and your opinion around these things, right? Like, so your experience and everything around it for the first 5 minutes, and we will do a round 2 of discussion where we'll talk about what do you think would address these issues, and that would be round 2. And if possible, and if time permits, we'll get questions from audience, and we'll do a final 1 minute of summary or something of that sort. So I hope that's fine for everyone. Yep. So so from that perspective, let's start with our government officials actually from Gorakhpur. So we have the Assistant Municipal Commissioner, Mr. Avinash, and Gorakhpur has been actually taking very interesting steps into flood mitigation right now, and not many cities in India are actually taking that kind of a leap. And I mean, from their experiences working on ground and how they have figured this entire thing out, let's try to hear it from. So, sir, if you can please talk about your experiences in about Ban Gorakhpur.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Avinash. Actually, I was told by Municipal Commissioner sir that I have to give a presentation in LDMA tomorrow. So last minute, this came, I have to do a table talk with some brilliant minds of this field. So I was not prepared, and still I am not prepared. When I came, I saw that there are two professors from IIT Delhi and IIT Madras. I got very scared. Then I realized my GM Jalke sir is also IIT Delhi and my. So it's like, हाँ ठीक है वो हो जाएगा. So जितना भी ये presentation था, it was good, very good. But मेरा एक छोटा सा पॉइंट ये रहता है, कैन आई टॉक इन हिंदी इंग्लिश दोनों? मेरा छोटा सा पॉइंट ये रहता है कि अब किताब छोड़ दो, अब फील्ड में जाओ. हम लोग भी फील्ड में गए और फील्ड में अच्छा करके दिखा दिया, और इतना अच्छा किया है कि यूपी कल एनडीएमए ने हमको इनवाइट किया है, स्पेशल गोरखपुर का अर्बन फ्लड हमको प्रेजेंट करना है वहाँ पे कि हम कैसे कर रहे हैं. और अभी रिसेंटली स्टेट डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट के वाइस चेयरमैन लेफ्टिनेंट जनरल दिमरी, योगेन दिमरी, इज़ अ वेरी रिनाउंड आर्मी पर्सनल. उनके बारे में ये कहा जाता है कि वो सवाल बहुत पूछते हैं. तो लकीली हमारे यहाँ वो आए, 1 घंटा प्रेजेंटेशन चला और हम लोग से आधे घंटे सवाल पूछे थे, क्यों सौम्या जी, और हमने उनको पूरी तरह से सेटिस्फाई किया था. सो मेरा पहला पॉइंट तो ये था. अब नेक्स्ट ये है कि हम गोरखपुर में कर क्या रहे हैं, जिसके लिए मैं यहाँ पे बुलाया गया हूँ. सो अर्बन फ्लड से इंडिया में टोटल कितना लॉस होता है ईयरली, किसी को कोई आइडिया है? मैं स्टैटिस्टिक्स या इकोनॉमिक्स का कोई बहुत जानकार नहीं हूँ, न्यूज़पेपर आर्टिकल में ही पढ़ा है मैंने भी. अराउंड $4 बिलियन हमारा लॉस होता है ईयरली ऑन अर्बन फ्लड्स. और अर्बन फ्लड्स आते क्यों हैं? बिल्कुल सिंपल सा मैन रीजन है अर्बनाइजेशन. अर्बनाइजेशन हमारे लिए इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज में अर्बनाइजेशन डे बाय डे बढ़ता ही जाता है. फॉर एग्जांपल कि लास्ट ईयर गोरखपुर म्युनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन वाज अराउंड 70 square kilometer area, and in 2023 our boundaries extended to 147 square kilometer area. So because कि आउटर स्कर्ट्स जो विलेजेस थे वहाँ पर भी अर्बनाइजेशन हो रहा है, दैट मीन्स कि हमको भी वहाँ पे म्युनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन की अपनी अर्बन फैसिलिटीज उनको दोनी है. तो अर्बनाइजेशन एक ऐसी चीज है जिसको हम लोग रोक नहीं सकते. वी हैव टू प्रमोट अर्बनाइजेशन. अर्बनाइजेशन से प्रॉब्लम क्या आती है अर्बन फ्लड की? बहुत बेसिक सा इसका जवाब है कि जो नेचुरल वेल ऑफ है वो डिस्टर्ब होता है. अर्बन फ्लड क्यों आता है? अर्बनाइजेशन से. अर्बनाइजेशन से प्रॉब्लम क्या होती है? जो नेचुरल रन ऑफ है उसको हम लोग डिस्टर्ब कर देते हैं. बस यही प्रॉब्लम है एक ब्रॉड मतलब लियन एंड टर्म में. टेक्निकल में जाएंगे तो ऑफ कोर्स सर लोग हैं वो लोग और बताएंगे, बट मेरे हिसाब से मुझे जो लगता है बस सिंपल सा इतना रखना चाहिए. ज़्यादा कॉम्प्लेक्स करने से फिर चीज़ें और घबराहट होती है. तो हमें गोरखपुर में किया क्या? हमने गोरखपुर में किया कि पहले हमने वेदर फोरकास्टिंग मतलब हमने ये प्रेडिक्ट करने की कोशिश की कि अमाउंट ऑफ रेनफॉल कितना हो रहा है, हमारे ड्रेस की कैपेसिटी क्या है, और हम पंप्स को उसको ऑटोमाइज करके उसे हम ड्रेन आउट कर ले रहे हैं कि नहीं कर रहे हैं. अगर ये तीनों फैक्टर्स इक्वल हो गए, अमाउंट ऑफ रेनफॉल, प्रेसिपिटेशन, ड्रेस कैपेसिटी एंड थर्ड फाइनल स्टेज पंपिंग आउट, अगर ये तीनों चीजें इक्वल हो गई तो फ्लडिंग नहीं होगी. ये एक बेसिक कंसेप्ट था मेरा, जो मुझे लगता है ठीक भी है, मतलब नॉर्मल वेज में। तो इस पर हम लोगों ने वर्क किया। तो पहला हम लोग ने एक एक्सटेंसिव सर्वे किया, टाइम है ना अभी, तो हमने एक्सटेंसिव सर्वे किया। एक्सटेंसिव सर्वे में हमने क्या किया कि पहले टोपोग्राफी पे वर्क किया, डीजीपीएस सर्वे किए, लिडार डेटा थे हमारे पास, डेम के मॉडल्स थे। इन सब चीज़ों को हम लोगों ने एक सॉफ्टवेयर में, पीसी सिम सॉफ्टवेयर है उसमें मतलब उसको इनकॉर्पोरेट कर दिया। ये तो हो गया पहला हमारा एलिवेशन से रिलेटेड हमने जो सर्वे किए। दूसरा सर्वे हमारा था डेज के। तो हमारे यहाँ बिफोर मतलब लास्ट 2 ईयर से हम लोग क्या कर देते, सिंपल सरकारी तरीके से होते हैं कि सारे नालों की एक सूची बना लो, उस सूची को दे दो, साफ हो जाए सब। वही था, बस हमने उसको थोड़ा सा डिजिटल टाइप में कर दिया। तो हमने ड्रेन्स की इन्वेंट्री बनाई, मेजर, सेकेंडरी एंड टर्शरी, और प्राइमरी, सेकेंडरी, टर्शरी, हम उन्हें अथवा मेजर कहते हैं। तो मेजर ड्रेस हमारे शहर में 14 है, 14, सेकेंडरी है 150 एंड टर्शरी भी 160 के अराउंड है। तो हमने इस सारे ड्रेन्स को अपना एक इन्वेंट्री बना ली, गूगल मैप पे उसको मार्क कर लिया। अब जब इतना कर लिया, फिर हमने अपने जो हमारे सैंपल्स हैं, हमने उन सैंपल्स, हमारे यहाँ 30 ईयर्स हैं, 30 ईयर्स होंगे ना जिन सर, 30 ईयर्स हैं। तो हमने उन पंप्स की कंडीशंस देखी कि वहाँ पे मशीन्स कैसी हैं, उनके इंजन्स कैसे हैं, उनके कंपोनेंट्स या पार्ट्स कैसे हैं, इनका एक सर्वे किया। इन सर्वे करने के बाद फिर हमने इसको अपने सॉरी इसको हमने सर्वे कर लिया। तो सर्वे करने के बाद हमने अपनी जो हम लैग कर रहे थे, कहाँ पे लैग कर रहे थे, उस चीज़ों पे हमने वर्क किया। और वेदर फोरकास्टिंग, और एक हमारा जो इनंडेशन मॉडल हम लोग रन करते हैं, एक सॉफ्टवेयर है हमारे पास, हमने इसका लिए टेंडर निकाला, और एक कंपनी है कैनरीज ऑटोमेशन, उससे लोग भी बैठे हुए हैं यहाँ पे। तो कैनरीज ऑटोमेशन हमको वो एक ट्रिपल सोल्यूशन दिया उन्होंने। पहला सोल्यूशन ये था कि हमारे वो सारे ड्रेन्स को ऑनलाइन मतलब डिजिटल कर रहे थे, हमारा वेदर फोरकास्टिंग करेंगे और पंप्स का ऑटोमाइजेशन करेंगे। अब इस सर्वे को करने के बाद हमारा जितने भी वेदर फोरकास्टिंग में, हाँ हमें अब एक थोड़ा कमी भी बतानी चाहिए अपनी। वेदर फोरकास्टिंग में हम लोगों ने बहुत ट्राई किया कि हमने डॉपलर डेटा को यूज़ किया। डॉपलर डेटा आईएमडी का लेटेस्ट डेटा है, बट जो डॉपलर डेटा हमको मिला उसका स्टेशन है लखनऊ एंड पटना। तो लखनऊ उससे नहीं मिलके हमको पटना से मिला। जो पटना का जो एक्सटेंट था, एरियल एक्सटेंट, वो गोरखपुर के बिल्कुल एज पे था। तो वो हमारे वेदर फोरकास्टिंग मॉडल में वर्क नहीं किया। फिर हम लोग इंटरनेशनल कई वेबसाइट्स हैं जो वेदर फोरकास्टिंग के डेटा को रिलीज करती हैं, उसको प्रोबेबिलिस्टिक मॉडल से करते हैं ये लोग। तो डॉपलर डेटा हमारा वर्क नहीं किया, लेकिन हम लोग अभी भी आईएमडी के ही ऊपर रिलाई कर रहे हैं। आईएमडी का भी डेटा अच्छा है। आईएमडी के कई लोगों से हम लोग ने बात किया, तो आईएमडी का डेटा उनका अच्छा, वो भी कहते हैं आईएमडी पे आप रिलाई करें। तो हम आईएमडी पे रिलाई कर रहे हैं। अब हम क्या करते हैं, बेसिकली सपोज करिए कि अगर वेदर फोरकास्टिंग है 20 mm का, तो हम 20 mm के रेनफॉल के लिए हम पीसी सिम सॉफ्टवेयर में एक इनंडेशन मॉडल रन करते हैं, 1D एंड 2D। 1D मॉडल हमको डिफरेंट नोड्स बताता है किस नोड्स पे वाटर ओवरफ्लो हो जाएगा। बेसिकली वो रन ऑफ को कैलकुलेट करता है एंड नोड्स को कैलकुलेट करता है। जो हमने एलिवेशन मॉडल लिया था, तो वो हमको नोड्स बताता है किस नोड्स पे ओवरफ्लो होगा, किस ड्रोन में किस एरिया में कितनी देर तक पानी रहेगा। एक जो पीसी सिम सॉफ्टवेयर जब उसको आप रन करेंगे, तो वो आपको बताएगा कि सपोज करिए 40 mm की रेनफॉल हो रही है अगर 2 आवर्स में, तो वो डॉट्स बनाता हुआ चला जाता है कि इस एरिया में आपको वाटर लॉगिंग होगी। फिर वही आपको ये भी बता देता है कि इस एरिया से वाटर कितनी देर में रिसीड करेगा। तो वो उस सॉफ्टवेयर से हमको पता चल जाता है कि किस नोड पर, किस ड्रेन पर कितनी देर तक ये जो वाटर है, रन ऑफ का वाटर, वो रहेगा, कहाँ पे फ्लडी होगी। उस हिसाब से हम अपनी टीम्स को मोबिलाइज करते हैं। फिर जब ये सारा ड्रेन्स में हमको पता चल जाता है कहाँ कहाँ पे नोड्स पे ओवरफ्लोइंग होगी या फ्लडिंग होगी, फिर उसके बाद हमारा ये सारा कैलकुलेशन, एक हमारा पंप्स पे ऑटोमाइजेशन भी है। तो संपल पे हमारे AWLRs लगे हैं, जितने भी ड्रेन्स हैं उन पे AWLRs लगे हैं। तो जब वो ड्रेन से होते हुए रन ऑफ वाटर संपल पे जाता है, तो वहाँ का जो AWLR है वो हर सेकेंड एक डेटा निकालता है। वाटर लेवल का हमने अपने सैंपल्स में फीड कर रखा है कि अगर 40% अगर सैंपल की वैल्यू से अगर ऊपर जाता है पानी तो वो पंच ऑन होता है। तो ब्यूटी उसमें, मतलब ये तो एक नॉर्मल चीज हो गई। इस पूरे सिस्टम में ब्यूटी ये है कि अगर पानी ज्यादा तेज आता है तो वो सैंपल में 5 पंप्स लगे हुए हैं, तो अगर पानी का फ्लो ज्यादा है तो वो पांचों पंप्स को चला देगा, अगर फ्लो कम है तो वो सिर्फ एक पंप को चलाएगा। ये इसकी ब्यूटी है कि जैसी जरूरत होगी उस हिसाब से पंप्स ऑन ऑफ होते रहता है। इस तरह से हम लोगों ने किया है और इसका जो रिजल्ट हम लोग को मिला है, पहले हमारे यहाँ वाटर लॉगिंग 10 से 12 घंटे होती थी, अब शायद 1.5 से 2 घंटे में ही सब हो जाती है। और इन सब चीज़ों में हम लोगों ने एक अपने पूरे जो जब हम लोग ने मैपिंग कर रहे थे तो हमने हॉटस्पॉट्स और पॉइंट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट को भी नोट किया। अब हॉटस्पॉट्स और पॉइंट ऑफ इंटरेस्ट कैसे, जैसे हॉस्पिटल्स हो गए, स्कूल्स हो गए, पुलिस स्टेशन है, फायर स्टेशन है, इन सबको भी हमने एक उसमें मैप किया हुआ है। तो जब वो इनंडेशन मॉडल रन करता है तो वो हमको बताता है कि सपोज करिए 40 में 2 पुलिस स्टेशन पे फ्लडिंग हो जाएगी, तो वो हमको मार्क करके अलर्ट जनरेट करता है कि अगर 40 की बारिश होगी तो आपके 2 पुलिस स्टेशन पे वाटर लॉगिंग हो सकती है, एक हॉस्पिटल पे वाटर लॉगिंग हो सकती है। ये उसका एक एडवांस फीचर है, मतलब वो बताता है हमको इनंडेशन मॉडल पे। अब इस पूरे सब चीज़ों से अचीवमेंट्स में क्या मिला हमको, हमारा जो वाटर लॉगिंग का टाइम 10-12 घंटे था वो 1-1.5 घंटे हो गया है। हमारा जो रनिंग कॉस्ट था इंजन्स पे, डीजल और इलेक्ट्रिसिटी पे, वो लगभग 60% रिड्यूस हुआ है। और अब अच्छा, एक प्रॉब्लम और होती थी गोरखपुर में कि सपोज करिए कि बारिश शुरू हो गई, अब वो पंप्स को ऑन कौन करने जाएगा, हर वक्त तो एक आदमी नहीं हो सकता पंप पे, तो प्रॉब्लम होती थी कि पंप्स को ऑन कौन करेगा। तो हमने इसका ऑटोमाइजेशन किया, तो अब इसमें जो ह्यूमन इंटरवेंशन है वो ऑलमोस्ट हाफ कर दिया है हमने। अब फ्यूचर में हमारा इसी प्रोजेक्ट में हमने सब ऑटो प्राइम पंप्स लिया हुआ है, तो उसमें फिर हमें वैक्यूम क्रिएट करने की भी ज़रूरत नहीं। अभी तो हमें ह्यूमन इंटरवेंशन की ज़रूरत होती है वैक्यूम क्रिएट करने के लिए डीजल पंप्स जो बड़े हैं, मतलब अबाउट 50 HP। तो ह्यूमन इंटरवेंशन की अभी 1-2 महीने में हमारा सारे ऑटो प्राइम पंप्स लग जाएंगे, तो हमें बिल्कुल ह्यूमन इंटरवेंशन की ज़रूरत नहीं होगी सब। अच्छा, पंप्स में हमारे सेंसर्स लगे हुए हैं, वो आपके डीजल, वाटर, एनर्जी, उनका सबका भी डेटा हमारे कंट्रोल सेंटर में देते हैं। तो मतलब ऑल एंड ऑल ये हम अभी हमारा जो ये प्रोजेक्ट सिस्टम है, अभी हम इस पर लीस्ट इंटरवेंशन पे हैं और इसको हम बिल्कुल ही ख़त्म करेंगे, बिल्कुल ह्यूमन इंटरवेंशन नहीं रहेगा। और हमारा ये इस साल हम लोग का मई 2025 से ऑपरेशनल है और अच्छा ही चल रहा है। एक बार हम लोग को प्रॉब्लम हुई थी जब 1 घंटे में थोड़ा ज़्यादा बारिश हो गई थी, तो वो हमारे लिए एक चैलेंज था, वहाँ पे हमको थोड़ा सा हम लोग से गलती हो गई थी इनंडेशन मॉडल को रन करने में कि अगर 40 की बारिश अगर 40 मिनट में ही हो जाए तो कितना वाटर लॉगिंग होगी, इसको हम लोग एसेस नहीं कर पाए थे। ये हमारी गलती है, इसको हम लोग ने सीखा है इस बार, तो कोशिश करेंगे नेक्स्ट टाइम ये ना हो। बस इतना ही है। हाँ, थैंक यू।
Thank you, sir. Sir, what was the total project cost for doing this?
Structural was 30 crores and non-structural was around 26-27 crores. Overall, it was around 62 crores. And it is fully funded by NDMA.
Yes. All right. Wait. Thank you so much, sir. That was a very beautiful overview of the entire work, and that is actually it. You can talk about a lot of things, right? Like, so it's talked about the monitoring, the data inavailability, and trying to use global forecast data and everything that is. Luckily, the global forecast data is open, and so I mean that is the advantage of having open data and everything. So that is enabled. Sir, if you want to add a little bit about this work, considering that you have been working on stormwater drains and everything around it, I think you can add a little bit more on this.
Yes. Thank you. Good afternoon. As Vinas ji explained it very well. Basically, data is required for every decision making. If you want to make a effective decision, then you have to have a good data. And data sanitation is data ka sanitization of data is very important. Earlier, when we work on our flood mitigation plan of Gorakhpur, then we collect many data in haphazard way, and we don't have any actual data. Actual data was the paper cuttings. How much rainfall occurred in past years, and और पब्लिक saying कि that much that उस साल में पूरा गोरखपुर डूब गया था. So like this, when this physical activity, medical activity, and this college or school going children are facing problem, then we are forced to get some solution of this water flood management. We faced some challenges and we identified some of the problems. Basically, our drains, ponds, lakes, and wetlands were encroached, and development was not in very proper manner. Unplanned development was there. Drains were constructed, and their gradients and their discharge points were not identified correctly. Whole work will be doing in a haphazard way. Then we make some extensive survey, a LIDAR survey. Then we come up with some idea that we have to do some work, and around 2,000 crores projects were project were envisaged, and that much money was not there with the government or with the SDMA. They suggest that you should go for phase-wise manner. Then in one phase, we identified critical areas where we should work and get results immediately. Then we have come up with some important projects for drainage remodeling and strengthening our pumping, because the sudden increase in the bed level of Rapti river, it caused the backflow of water into the city, and we have to shut out our gates on the bund which irrigation gates were there. Natural flow is there. Then we have around 11 pumping stations, flood pumping station along the bund of this river Rapti, which we have to operate in the rainy season. And we strengthen them. We collected some data from IMD and start work in last September, and then we completed it in March 25. So result is there. That's what thinking.
Thank you, sir. Sir, one quick question. Where are we storing this data? Is it the data that is collected by as part of this project, or is it like you have the capacity in the corporation itself? Or?
Yes, we are storing in our server. We have our dedicated server now. Not only that, but this IMD data also, and we have our archive where we store all the data.
Great, thank you so much, sir. So, Dr. Soumendra, I'll pass it to you. I mean, you heard from two practitioners, and from our presentation and our interactions from others also. It's a very costly exercise, and the budget and everything, self-funded municipal corporations, I mean, it will be very difficult for them to raise their own money. And considering the innovations that you have been working on with respect to modeling and data collection, and particularly in a country where, data is deficit, right? Like there is a huge amount of data deficit. And in a data deficit environment, and the complexities related to modeling and everything around that. I would like to hear your experience around it and your thought processes around it, and also the kind of work that you have been taking up in IIT Madras and creating the new models and everything around it. It will be very lovely to hear it.
Thank you. So I am Professor Somendra from IIT Madras. I am from Civil Engineering Department, and fortunately I have been working on flood since my PhD days. Okay, so since 2003. Look, I think what Avinash sir told, that's what we do. So you're telling that this is simple thing, but that's what the approach is. For most of the cities. Now, let me talk about the data overall. So for any modeling system, we need quality data. So because most of the models are deterministic models, those who are working in flood modeling, they know it. And now AI, ML, they are into the picture. But there also we need quality data. So very simple thing, garbage in, garbage out. If the data quality is not there, your output will not be there. Again, the data is very expensive. Data collection, maintenance, and when we go for data collection, there will be noise. So again, filtering, checking, so it's a costly affair. So I would say the data can be classified or collected in two ways. One is from the ground, that is very, very costly. And nowadays, we are relying on secondary source like satellite data. And so the satellite data, it's coming in very high resolution. And I think in near future, it will be even more accurate with more new missions are coming, like recently NISHAR, that is there, then SWOT, Sentinel, these, that so many sources are there. So, considering the size of the country, size of the problems and our economic strength, I would rely more and more on this indirect data measurements. Of course, we have to ensure quality, and there are different approaches to improve the quality also of this data with the help of ground data. So we have to balance it somehow. So from that perspective, then after collection the data maintenance, and then putting the data somewhere so that in future, in a streamlined way, we can access it and use it. So all these are required from data perspective. Now, how to use the data? Then there are multiple types of users. Some can be like modelers, they will give inundation, this, that. There can be people from like social science and other sectors, they look at the data from different perspective. So that use will be in a different way. So data, it's not like for one purpose, it can serve multiple purposes. So when we collect the data, I think instead of collecting data for one purpose, I think we need to define broader perspective of the data, and we need to collect and maintain the data to serve different purposes. And then regarding this especially flooding, major data is like ground data, that is a topography. Now, a LiDAR is very expensive. If we can get it, it's fine. Otherwise, but in modeling system, what I have seen is going below 2 meter or less than that, it's really not feasible. Your model can't handle it for a big city. So we have to explore that side also, whether we need to collect sub-meter data or 2 meter resolution data can serve the purpose. And then next level is like all the drain data, size, invert levels, junctions, and maintenance of these drains before every monsoon. And next level is this rainfall, that is the primary input. So we rely on especially IMD data. And one good thing is recently IMD has started
very high resolution data, 6 kilometer resolution, I think, right, Manavendra? So that is not accessible by everybody, but I think municipality and others, they can access it. That's a new data source. So maybe that can help you. And next is like radar. Earlier we were using X-band and other radars, but now dual Doppler radars are coming. So like it's like mobile towers, small. So multiple radars that can give excellent rainfall data. But again, when we are going for like forecasting, measuring the data and then going for nowcasting, it takes time. So we have to rely on something with that data. As soon as the data is coming, my model should give me the result. That lead time should be there. There it's coming like what type of model will be using. So very complex model if you use, there will not be much lead time. So we need to rely on simplified model. But I think next level of simplicity can be AI driven or data driven model that can give very good results in less time. But for that also we need not only quality data for that event, we need good length of data. So if we are not collecting data, this is the right time, so that after 5-10 years we will have good amount of data, then our prediction will again improve. So once we have good data, good modeling framework, then what others they were presenting like risk, exposure, vulnerability, all these things can be done. These are, I would say, these are all post-processing things. It's not that difficult. And hotspots, what Sir was telling, that is another thing. If we have field survey data for a few years, few monsoons, that which part is getting flooded every time. Well, let's say model, there can be some uncertainty. But if we go and survey every time, what are the hotspots? If we get few times, then yes. So that will guide you in an excellent way. Then you run and rely on the model. So that's all from my side at this moment. We will discuss again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So we follow up with Dr. Manavendra. So almost the same question to you with respect to these models. Actually, probably in the second round also we'll try to discuss this a little bit more. In the sense, for example, HECRAS has done a great job for us in this field. They made a software open and everything around it. And, where will, the Indian contribution be with these kind of context and with advanced methods and everything around it? Do we get to see those kind of models and everything? But the other question is that, whatever I asked, Samendra said the same thing, the innovations in this field and how we can go about it. I think I would like to hear a lot of that. Thank you.
First of all, I want to congratulate the Gorakhpur team because I've been following your work on LinkedIn. So I've seen a lot of updates, and the flood control unit that you have set up, I think, is one of the first in India. So I'm very excited to meet you in person and also hear about what is happening there. And I meet the NDMA people quite regularly. I think Rizvi will be very happy to see this because they have been trying to get the mitigation fund to be used in a proper way. And I think not all cities have understood the meaning of the mitigation fund, that it's not a structural spending alone, that there is a lot of money that needs to be spent on non-structural measures, which is what I'm happy to hear that 40% is reserved for non-structural measures, and that is what the original plan for the mitigation fund was. So I think they will be very happy to hear that this is how the cities are progressing. Continuing on the data side, so I think one thing from my experience is that we like to say that data does not exist, but I would say half of the time that I've looked for certain data, it almost always it does exist, right? In India, if any kind of data, if you're looking at a precipitation data, flooding data, at 4 or 5 years, I can tell you one example, maybe that helps. So about 5 years back, we wanted to have a flood
kind of observation database, not modeling database. We wanted to see where have floods happened in the past 50 years. Now, IMD publishes something called a disaster weather events report every year. So it's a DWE PDF report. In earlier years, they used to publish it as a book. Now they just publish a PDF. Now we were looking at it, and what we found was still 2 years back, it was nowhere to be found. It was stuck in some library in IITM Pune, right? But it's the treasure trove of data. So what, 5 years back, I called a few people saying, I just cold called them saying, can we get this data? And they were themselves not aware that they had the data. The higher ups are aware, but the problem is the people who are in the libraries of IMD, they are not really aware of what is in their library, right? So eventually I called the chief scientist, Dr. Pai, and he was very generous. He got us scanned copies from 1967. So thankfully, IIT Delhi has an ample supply of great people. And so we got like an army of interns, about 10, 12 people working on it for 3 to 4 months. We digitized everything for the past 50, like from 1967 onwards till 2024, we digitized everything and we released everything in public, whatever we had. And we continuously upgraded every year. When there is a new season, we just upgrade it. So we may see that, yes, data did not exist, but that was only because it was stuck in some silo that only people who are looking at it, like who are obsessed about looking at some flood data, will probably be thinking about it. A general person or even someone in the municipality who readily wants this data, it is not their job to actually go and search in some library, right? Data should be easily available to them in a format that they want today. So I think open data is the basis on which all data, and my definition of open data is very simple, that I should not have to talk to another human being to get the data. If data requires me to email someone, make a few phone calls, it's not open by default. We can say that data is available, but we should not say data is open. Because I found that there is a huge amount of data that is available, but oftentimes it is not open. And globally, open science, the definition of open science is that you should not have to email. There was an interesting paper that came out last month where they said that only 5% or 10% of people, like in the end of a publication, sometimes some people say, if you want the data, please email the authors. So someone did a study on this, that apparently only 8% of people ever reply to that request, which obviously is people like me, right? So like professors like me or PhD students who publish papers, you email them, you'll never get the data. So that should not happen. Data should be out in the open before the paper is published or the day the paper is published. I think that should be the definition of open. And what I found is that if you put the data in open, you will see people utilizing it in ways you never really anticipated, right? And we have had people, for example, we got an email from Maharashtra. There is a place where they get a lot of landslides, and they were trying to get the data for landslides. And in our flood data set, we had also done landslides, even though that was not our focus. So they took the data and they were utilizing it for their own perspective. This was the municipal government in the district, and something that I would not have the time to pursue or interest to pursue. But they are doing it only because the data is open. And certain organizations in the government are more open to it. IMD generally puts a lot of data out in open, so that is why municipality is also benefiting from it. But for example, soil data. If you look for soil data, it will be super hard to get access to that data, right? You'll usually rely on some global data set that is not that valid for India. But in the absence of it, what are you going to do? You have to continue the work. So you do what you have access to. So open data should be out in the open from day one, and it should be in the format that you have collected, not in some derived format. Just dump everything out in public, and you will see a lot of great minds using it in ways that you did not anticipate. And that has been my experience for past 5 years. And I like the discussion about inundation model, 1D, 2D, and you explained it very nicely. And from the ground that you understand what is 1D, what is 2D, what is the benefit. I think that is we are already at the cutting edge when it comes to municipality expertise in India, because we talk to people a lot of the time, and they are not aware of what exactly they need, right? People can only provide if they understand what they need. But you not only know what you need, you have actually implemented. Now you're running it, and things can always improve, and there will always be things to improve. But at least the basic things are all done, and that is very exciting to hear. And about the inundation model, so I think HECRAS is a great model. We have used it many times as well. But I think there is an opportunity here to also leapfrog. So there are two ways. One is we have one set of models that can always run on a workstation. So HECRAS is one of those models that can run in one computer. And then you also have these parallelized models. These are models that we run all over India. So for example, we run a model called HiMap, which is an inundation model. We run it all over India. But they give you core scale inundation at 10 kilometer, for example. But for a city, you need a meter scale. So what is the happy middle? And what I've found is that GPU-based models, I have rarely seen it being used in India at this moment, because these models itself are quite new, right? Most of the GPU models have only been developed in the past 4 years, 3 to 4 years. Even though GPUs have been in existence for 10 years now, but most of the models are quite new. So I think this is where we can leapfrog, in that municipalities at the district level or even at the state level, they should not have to run a supercomputer to get their work done. Because oftentimes we understand that they have capital expenditure, capex, how they need to spend. They cannot put huge amount on opex. The capex they can spend because they have litigation fund, they have access to a lot of other government funds. So they can purchase a workstation for 10 lakhs instead of 2 lakhs. That is easy for them to do. But will the models be able to take advantage of a 10 lakh workstation? Most of the CPU models are not. Because the CPU models, I can give an example that most of them are rate limited to four processors. So even if you buy a workstation with 32 processors, someone may think, oh, I bought a great workstation. Will it run 5 times faster? It will not. Because the model itself can only take advantage of 8 processors. And I would say 95% of the models are that way. And because they're a model from a previous era. But new models that have come up, they are all, I can talk about 5-6 models that have come up. These are all GPU-based inundation models, and they are 8 to 10 times faster than CPU-based models. And good thing is that you don't need a supercomputer. You only need one GPU, and your inundation model can accelerate. So what we have done it over Guwahati, we have collected LiDAR survey over the city. So this is around 150 kilometers square. It's like within the, I think, top 15 cities in terms of size in India. 150 kilometers square we covered. 110 kilometers square we did with LiDAR. 40 kilometers square we did with photogrammetry because it has a lot of lanes. And after that, our operational goal was that our models should run within 10 minutes. Because if the model does not run within less than, say, 20-25 minutes, in a flash flood situation, you will not be able to utilize it. So that is the problem with HECRAS type models, because they are not able to utilize the improvement in computing power that we all have access to. That did not exist 5 years back. So I think this is something that we can look at. Can we develop? You asked what could be our contribution to India and outside as well. I think this is something that we can do. In that, can we rely on the happy middle of running these GPU-based inundation models, which gives the municipalities what they want within 15 minutes, and also does not force them to use models that are centrally run, that they are able to run within their unit, so that 10 people can get expertise in running that model over a long period of time. But they also do not have to maintain a big workstation, like a server room or something like that. Something simple, but works for their needs. I think this is something that we can definitely work on. And a lot of things are happening. I would like to end here by saying, IMDs, there is a new data set, Indian Precipitation Ensemble data set. For the longest time, IMD 0.25 degree data that everyone has used. We have worked with IMD for the past 3 years. So we just, Ministry of Earth Sciences on their foundation day, on 28 July, they released a new data set, which is a 10 kilometer. So this is an observation only product. So no radar, no satellite, only station data that has been upscaled to 10 kilometer scale. And this is now freely available. We have released all the data in public. And because this is released by IMD, so it is like an official government product that you can utilize for different works. And if anyone finds any usage, please feel free to email us. We would love to have a chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Manavendra. Actually, you brought back some memories for me. So I'll just mention some work that I did with GPU modeling back in 2017. So I had my own module of flood modeling and everything. So it had like a plug and play and everything. Unfortunately, it was developed by me, right? Like, so there is a huge cost of me I have to spend the time to, nobody can understand it, and I have to run it, and back then it was not that easy to run also. And it was very difficult, and I had custom written that code. and it was too hectic for me. And unfortunately, there was a power shortage, and the GPU went off. I think in 2021 or somewhere around, I think I abandoned the project, and I said, people who can maintain models should create models, and people like me who didn't have the time or the capacity to constantly upgrade it, because a model maintenance and creation is a very big task, a management task, which I didn't have. But I'm so glad to hear that this has now come in a much more standardized manner and everything around it, and it's so glad. I'll get back to you on that. But Dr. Manavendra actually touched one critical topic about open data. I think I'll go into Satrupa's contribution right now, because they run something called as OpenCity, right? Like, so OpenCity is a very big platform, very interesting platform, and they do a lot of, it's not just that they bring data into public forum, but they also do a lot of mapathon and many other exercises which engages community with utilization of this data and how to utilize it and everything. I think we'll love to hear your experiences around it and your opinions around that as well. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Raj. And a very big thank you to Dr. Manavendra, because he actually made the segue for my contribution here quite easy when he mentioned the distinction between available data and open data. So before I share our experiences with the kind of activities that we do in OpenCity, I just want to put out the basic premise of our organization and foundation and what we do, why we do. And whether it is urban flooding or whether it is anything else, our focus or our mission is to place the community and the citizen at the center of it all. So whether we are talking about data or whether we are talking about reporting, what we want to actually find out or what we want to achieve is to find ways that will actually make a difference to the livability of our citizens and communities in the cities. So while I completely respect and admire all the technical advancements that are being made today in the form of modeling or even, let's say, just generation of data, I think the fact that bothers us a lot is that even today, after a 2-hour spell of rain, it takes people 4 hours to reach home. And that is something which is what we want to change, whether it is through data analysis or through reporting or through a combination of the two. And one thing we've realized through our work in on OpenCity, where our first objective is, of course, to bring in as much open data, public data that exists out there for communities to access, interpret, and analyze in a way that they can find solutions. And secondly, also to underline the intersectionality of some of these problems. So, for example, if I'm talking of flooding today, it is not just rainfall data which is important, right? If I look at the reporting that we've done over years on urban flooding and how communities get affected, we realize that there are many, many factors which have created this flooding problem in Indian cities. And some of these are technical, some of these are administrative, some of these are purely man-made issues that have created what cities are today like. So, for example, if I just take one example of water bodies, okay, it's not just rainfall, it's also about the state of our wetlands, of our lakes, of our urban rivers, and how they have been systematically encroached upon, either willfully or maybe unconsciously, whatever the case may be. But the fact that we cannot approach flooding without tackling the data available on some of these things, okay? So, for example, today, if I don't have, even if I have the best of rainfall data, if I cannot correlate it with the state of all water bodies, let's say, that exist in a city, how these have been built upon, whether through satellite. I mean, we do have satellite data which indicates that. But just a public source to put everything out there. What is the state of the buffer zones? How have they changed over the years? All these things need to come together for any kind of effective policy implementation to take place. Okay, not just policy implementation, even policy formulation, I would say. So that is something which we try to do in Open City when we organize these data jams or hackathons or mapathons, where we try to see what are all the related data sets that are available in the public domain that actually have a bearing on the problem statements with respect to the theme that we take up, which may be urban flooding in this case. And then we call upon people from diverse backgrounds. So there may be data analysts, there may be mapping GIS specialists, there may be urban planners, there may be architects, and there may be just civil society organizations who are working with, low-income communities, areas, slum areas where flooding is a regular occurrence. And we bring all of them together, we give them the data sets, and they kind of correlate the different data that they get to arrive at workable solutions for hyperlocal levels. And their openness of data is something which we continuously struggle with. So as Dr. Manavendra was saying, that there may be a lot of data out there with some agency, with some authority, but for us to be able to access it and to present it for the, for communities in a way that they can utilize it, analyze it, interpret it, continues to be a huge struggle. In terms of crowdsourcing data, sometimes, we have also engaged in collaborative efforts at crowdsourcing some data from the ground. But since a lot of it is still like technology oriented, there is always the risk of invisibilization of communities who are affected by it. So we don't really know that even if today, like, if we are getting anonymous data, if we ask people to just click a photo of their area or give us information about how long the area was flooded, how much rain, how long they saw the rainfall, and how long it took the water to drain out, all of that, we don't really know, but we are actually getting data from the worst affected communities. We are probably not. So that bit also remains a challenge unless there is, what I'm trying to say is, unless there is a state supported public data source where all these related aspects of flooding data are compiled and regularly made available, the solutioning continues to remain out of our reach. We hear of models, we hear of advancements in technology, but at the end of the day, the problem continues to remain the same where it comes to citizens and livability. So I'll stop here for now, and we'll just listen to the others, and if there's something later, I can come back. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Actually, it's actually very, very important work that they are doing. Actually, we have been ever since Open City was doing these data jams and everything. We have been trying to collaborate wherever possible. We did one of this crowdsourcing and everything. We attempted it and everything, but it's actually a very, very important topic because the Open City platform, if you're looking about it, it's not just moving data to people, but The other thing is that these data jams and everything is about moving people to data as well, right? Like, so it's about what he was mentioning as consumable data, right? Like, so consumable data. And on the other hand, this consumable information is something that the team is also actually working on some research paper, Kritika, Abhishek, and everyone. We give as this technical outputs. Who can read it? So the dissemination part actually very much becomes important. It will be much easier for someone to understand knee level flooding when compared with, let's say, 0.3 meters of flooding. So, this kind of consumability and everything is actually a very, very interesting topic, and it's important to bring that aspect of it. In a world, this flooding issue, I mean, I would say that it has been a lot of time, it is always the technicalities that take the attention. As a person who is working on the technical things as well, I say that, we tend to hijack it. And, the community part and the, the larger social part is something that is lacking. And Niri, I'll ask you this question. As a person who is working on solutions on ground, you have been working on implementing nurture-based solutions. And, fortunately, they have funds and they are doing something about it. Gray solutions or green solutions or whatever it is. But not every city in India is blessed with that funding. And it doesn't mean that people can wait. In that kind of an environment, I would like to know how you're going ahead with, the implementations of policy, and how are you bringing in people into these kind of actions in working, towards flood and everything around it, right? Thank you.
Thank you. So, because my background is in landscape architecture and architecture, and most of my work has been on the ground, looking at solutions, particularly in spaces which have been challenged spaces, which have had a lot of flood impacts, but also the projects typically that I've worked on, at least over the last 10 years, they've been projects for government that have been done through CSR. So the funding is always low. Data collection early on has always been a challenge. Not that we didn't know that we needed it necessarily, but it either, like I think everybody's mentioned, it didn't exist, or it's there, or it's in some place that is not accessible. So a lot of our decision making was based on the patterns we knew or read through the ground or found ways to adapt. And were able to actually prove that some of the solutions were possible, but also what we found over time is it was very important for that feedback loop to go back and get institutionalized. And that's why I think when we talk about data, it's so important that cities have that data and they have access not only to everything that is happening and have the capacity to manage that data, also interpret it. Because a lot of the time the data in different places, there are a lot of studies across the board, but the person who's making a decision in the city typically doesn't know how to interpret it or how to use it or how all the different layers of information can inform the next step. So I think it's great that Gorakhpur has found an aspect of the management of data, but that is one step that probably can be built on in so many ways through policy. That data can inform, go back into policy, look at other ways that designs can happen on the ground that feed into not just right now they have pumping systems, but there's also a large ecosystem of other solutions that can tie into that. Where your pumping reduces, you still use the information. And then there's also, again, the layers of community and where development happens next, how that gets managed, how that then platforms where the understanding is more uniform. Because right now, a few people with a lot of initiative do a lot. And then that information doesn't carry on through the city and get institutionalized. So until that happens, where the almost broad basing of the basic access to data, understanding of data, the capacity to reuse data, but also scale up. Because then the innovation that data can provide will start coming back into the system and then, take it to the next level. The other one thing I think we have to start looking in terms of data is also the silos that we have of different aspects of where data comes from and what field it is for. And all of it, again, has to come back to a city management, because that's when you can put it all together and a lot of the solutions are complementary. they're typically not one-off. It's not flooding or heat or something. It's all, the community and resilience and economics, and it all ties up, because this flooding shows us one flood can change the dynamics of so many things. So I think we have to look at engaging all of the layers, but through the city management.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, it's very, very important. I mean, the institution to, we always when we talk about floods, everyone talks about floods and we create everything around it. But the thing is, the changes that we are imagining is applicable for everything. I mean, why only floods, right? Like, so it should be everything else. So I'll pass it to Sahana. So now, I mean, of course, we had discussion about lack of data and everything around it, and also the solutions and the models and everything. There's a lot of focus on short-term forecasting and everything around it. But the holistic planning aspect of it, right? Like, so when we are talking about watershed, I mean, geographically is one, and temporally is another. Temporally in the sense long-term planning. And in these aspects, where do you think we are heading, and what do you think the challenges are and their opinions on it, on long-term planning and watersheds and everything around it?
Yeah, thanks, Raj. So there's two aspects in this long-term planning that I'd like to focus on. So first is around our approach to flooding itself, right? I think one of the key challenges that we see, and when we speak with governments and so on, is this focus on drainage. You have a flood, you drain the water. And that's, of course, that's logical and we need to do it. But if you look at a lot of other countries, their focus is not on flood drainage, it's on stormwater management. And just having that change in terminology actually shifts a lot of what our approaches are going to be, right? Because when you talk of flood management or drainage management, then you are already assuming that all of the water has inundated an area. Versus when you're talking of stormwater management, and I think this is to what Nidhi was mentioning, is that you have a suite of options that you can look at before you have the flood situation, because you want to reduce the possibility of flood. So whether it is through detention systems, using our natural resources of wetlands and lakes, or even constructed systems if that is what is required. And then only the excess of that is what overflows and then may possibly lead to flooding. So I think in our long-term planning vision, right, this big switch is really important. And I think it's a process, because we do know that a lot of cities, and West cities for that matter, are guided by our national guidance, whatever national guidance is there. It's fairly limited, but what we have is around drainage. CPHEO manual is about drainage. So it really limits what cities can do, because what city is going to try and experiment with something else when your national guidance is around this? What if it fails? Because cities are liable to, what sort of successes and failures they may face. So I think this is something that as practitioners, we really need to, move the needle towards. And your data management would happen across all of this, right? But your approach then is not just on doing inundation models, but also on assessing what sort of solutions in your upstream areas will limit your flooding, right? And we know that from a lot of large-scale watershed modeling that is done, a lot of restoration in upstream areas, solutions like this are there for very regional scale approaches. But in a city focus, we don't really look at that, because in the city, we are in this boundary, and what is happening here, what can we deal with within this, right? So I think that is a big critical thing that needs to really shift, and that's very aspirational and ambitious, but I do hope that is something that we all work towards. The other thing that Raj mentioned is around the watershed, of course. Again, cities are constrained. You have very limited powers outside of your boundaries, but there has to be a mechanism, whether it's through state level interventions or regional interventions, that you have to be able to look at a watershed, particularly, micro watersheds, which are really impacting your area. And again, within your city, also looking at things in a watershed or micro catchment basis. I think, again, some cities are moving towards this. Gorakhpur's example of doing this whole sort of, system that they have put in place is, of course, looking at how hydrology is factoring in. But the question then is that, of learnings for us is what did Gorakhpur have that we can translate to other cities as well. And alongside all of this, the other piece, very distinctly different, that I want to talk on, especially when we talk of data, is when we talk of open data, we also have to, in our long-term planning, think of our data sovereignty. Because right now we are dependent on a lot of global data. What happens if that is not available? We are assuming that all of this open data we have is going to be stored somewhere. Where are the finances and the mechanisms to actually ensure that it's stored in a place where we can access it? And we know there are a lot of data access and data laws that India is bringing in. So there's a lot of sensitivity around that. So if we make an assumption that we will be using this data from a global data set to do our modeling, but that global data set shuts down. And this is an example that we have faced for one of our projects, where after Brexit, the data servers were in England and they had to be shifted into Brussels in Europe. Because all of the partnerships that they had were falling apart. And there was a 4-month period when we did not have access to data. Now imagine a city dependent on a model which is, taking in European data or something like this, and you're shut down for 4 months because you don't have access to that data. So I think data sovereignty in that manner, having open data that India has been able to generate, that Indians are able to access, sure, ideally, everyone in the world should be able to access, but at least for our cities and our citizens, we should be able to access data. We really have to put that into our planning as well, especially when we talk of data. So I stop here for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Elle. Actually, that was a great first round. Unfortunately, we don't have that much time. So I'll just walk around the room once again. But this time, I'll change the format here a little bit. If you're allowed to do, and if we can focus on one particular thing for, going forward with respect to data and flooding, what would that be? One word or one phrase or anything of that sort? That is your final summary. If you want to do, this is the thing that I'm going to do, whether it is open data or something like that. Yeah, we can hear that. We can start the other way around. Sahana, please start.
I would say personally, watershed level planning and data around that, which is useful for cities, is what I would really want to have focus on.
Right. Nidhi, what would you?
I would agree with that, really, but I would also say bringing in a multidisciplinary approach to looking at data and putting in all the layers together, so that then decision making has a lot of the depth that it needs to have.
Right. Satru.
Yeah, so all of this is important, of course, but I would emphasize the role of, maybe a ward level or even a smaller, maybe a booth level democratization or collection of data, which can be matched with the larger state level data that we have.
Right. Dr. Manavendra.
Thanks for the few seconds that I got to think about it. So I would say, this is a word that I used just in a meeting 2 days back in Bangalore. I would say export quality Swadeshi models, right? Because I think the word Swadeshi, people have started using it. We have been using it for centuries, but it should not mean bad models developed by people in India. It should mean world-class models that we have developed that is of global quality, but we should prioritize things that we are developing in India.
Great, thanks. Dr. Sahana.
Yeah, I think data creation for a city, as Nidhi was telling, it should be multidisciplinary. Now, in that direction, I would say we should head towards digital twin. So, in digital twin system, we can transform data from different sources in different dimensions, and we can put in the system, and it needs to be updated time by time. If we have digital twin, then I would say we have variety of data for variety of people and for variety of purposes. Now, if we adapt this thing for all the cities, it will be streamlined format. It's not like one city is collecting in one format, another city in another format, but digital twin can be one standard format. Throughout India, we can follow it, and this data can be in a public forum, at least for Indian users. That's what I can say.
Raghavendra sir, anything?
I think it is more important collecting data from different sources and verify across the sources which we get, and from zone level or ward level data is required, and we can have the feel of other cities how it is changing and what are changes is there, so that it can be beneficial for others.
Okay. For me, anytime it would be flood. So, पढ़ाई से बहुत बोर हो चुका हूँ. तो actually I forgot. For me, it will always be far. And Raj, with your permission, I forgot 1-2 points. Can I complete that? Okay. As Nidhi ma'am said, we should be working on a holistic plan. So, ma'am, I would like to tell you that our urban flood monitoring cell is not just a early warning system to administration and to Nagar Nigam. It also works on this holistic approach of stormwater drainage master plan. In Gorakhpur in UP, suppose in a city of Gorakhpur Municipal Corporation, drills are constructed by municipalities, PWD, RES, Irrigation Department, the multi agencies, GDA, DUDA. So, if you see, suppose in Gorakhpur we have 100 drains, then I think nearly 30% of the drains must have been constructed by Nagar Nigam. Rest have been constructed by different agencies. So, what we are doing is in urban flood, we are as I have told you earlier, we are making a inventory of filters. So, we are looking at whether our current drainage system is sustainable and whether it can be a 10-year future or 20-year, whether it can support a 10-year or 20 years of population. So, first, this was the point. And the second point you have raised that nature-based solution. We are working on that nature-based solution because one problem of Gorakhpur is also that along its coast, Rohili River is flowing. So when the floodgates are closed, we have to around 80% of pumping is done, or not 80% of water is pumped out. So we are working on that also. This is an automated analysis. And next thing now, तो यूपीएमसी सिर्फ एक हमारे अर्ली वेयर सिस्टम है, उसमें और भी चीजें करते हैं. थर्ड चीज जो मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूँ कि अभी जो हमारी प्रॉब्लम्स है, करंट प्रॉब्लम, जैसे इस साल पे हमारी एक नई प्रॉब्लम आई, एक कॉलोनी जटेपुर उतरी. So earlier there was a land between the railway line and Jatepur colony, which वो रिटेशन एरिया की तरह काउंट करता था, पॉन्ड के एक एरिया की तरह. बट लास्ट ईयर रेलवे हैज रिक्लेम दैट लाइन फॉर देयर एक्सटेंशन. सो नाउ इफ 1 hour of rainfall is there, the Jatepur colony is gets flooded. तो अब हम लोगों ने इस यूएफएमसी से ही इसके ऊपर एक एक्सटेंसिव सर्वे किया, फिर हमने उसका वाटर शेड बनाया, 2 ही 3 मोहल्लों का वाटर शेड बना के फिर हमने उसमें देखा कि उसके ऑल्टरनेटिव ऑप्शंस क्या हो सकता है. ऑल्टरनेटिव ऑप्शंस हमको अनलकीली अंडर ग्रेविटी फ्लो नहीं मिला, बट हमको एक सोल्यूशन मिला कि उसको हम पंप कर सकते हैं एक ऐसी जगह पर जहां पर वो हम उसको 600 मीटर से पंप करेंगे. रेस्ट वो लगभग 2.5 किलोमीटर या 2.5 किलोमीटर का अंडर ग्रेविटी फ्लो करेगा वो पानी. तो यूएफएमसी हमको इसमें और मदद करता है. तो सिर्फ ये एक अर्ली वार्निंग सिस्टम नहीं है कि अलर्ट जनरेट कर दे रहा है, ये फ्यूचर प्लानिंग में भी हमारी हेल्प करता है, जैसे ड्रेनेज वाटर सिस्टम हो गया, नेचर बेस्ड सॉल्यूशन है. एंड लास्ट पैथ मैम, सबसे पहले ये जो अर्बन फ्लड था ये शुरू हो रहा था चेन्नई में. आप तो चेन्नई से ही सर. तो चेन्नई क्या करता था पहले 2016 में, अगर मैं कहीं गलत हो तो प्लीज मुझे रोक दीजिएगा सर. तो चिन्मय ने सबसे पहले अपने वेदर फोरकास्टिंग शुरू किया, फिर उन्होंने इनंडेशन मॉडल गल किया, बस यहीं पर वो दूबी स्टेप कर रहे थे। थर्ड स्टेप जो हमारा था, जो उन्होंने नहीं किया, हमने किया, ऑटोमाइजेशन ऑफ पंप्स। तो ये हमारा जो है पहला एक यूनिक टैग का है पूरे इंडिया में। हम थर्ड स्टेज तक आए कि ऑटोमाइजेशन ऑफ पंप्स भी हमने किए। तो बस अच्छा, मैं ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ नगर आयुक्त साहब, म्यूनसिपल कमिश्नर, मैं आप सब लोग से रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा अगर आप लोग गोरखपुर आके हमारा अर्बन फ्लड मैनेजमेंट सेंटर देखना चाहें, हम लोग के लिए बहुत एक खुशी की बात होगी एंड विल बी थैंकफुल टू यू ऑल। थैंक यू।
Just into thing, just 1 minute, because only we are talking. Just to cheer up audience, I want to tell you one small story.
Just have a minute. Related to flood. Yeah, I've been given warning, but anyways, let's quickly if we can.
So, how this flood data can be used? One day in my office, suddenly our CSO, campus chief security officer, he came to my office and he told, "Sir, I am doing PhD for certain purpose at the age of 56 or 57. Now, what is the purpose?" He told, in the last 3 floods in Chennai, I have observed one thing. Crimes are increasing where the streets are more flooded. So I want to get better street level flooding maps so that next time I can deploy my personnel there. So he wanted to do this kind of research for that purpose. So that's what I'm telling. And sir, I will be very interested to see what this setup. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone. So quickly summarize, actually, it's a brilliant discussion that we had. I mean, we have to think about watershed management, a multidisciplinary approach, open data, new models, and the success stories. Actually, the success stories of Gorakhpur, the thing is that the learning is that how do we take these learnings everywhere else, right? Like, so I think the plan of this panel is not this discussion and just this discussion and everything around it. It is about how we, continue it as a forum and we start collaborating it a little bit more better, and we learn these experiences from one another. And I think from that perspective, I think it was great. So thank you everyone once again for coming, and thank you all the audience and everything. So I'm so sorry for the people who are waiting over there, and but it was there's a whole group.
So we can break. May I request the speakers, panelists, to just stand over there for a group photo, and I think tea and snacks are available. Thank you so much.